Welcome back to Healing Through Photography, a weekly podcast discussing my mental health journey and photography. On this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about my secret and how it was found out. But before we begin, let me just say that I am not a licensed therapist or psychologist. This is just my story and what happened to me and what worked and didn't work in my journey. So, with that, let's begin. So, at a young age, I knew I was different. I would say around 6 or 7, I knew I was different. I didn't know how I was different. I just knew and felt that I was. When I got into my teens and hit puberty, I realized how I was different. I realized because I was attracted to the same sex. And honestly, this scared the crap out of me because I was raised with a mom who went to a Southern Baptist church and my dad was a Pentecostal preacher. So I always joked about that I was raised in hellfire and brimstone. And as I said in the previous episode, in episode 1 of this podcast, I would pray every night for God to heal me from these thoughts and feelings. And if I had a gay thought, or I had a gay feeling, or I felt like I was acting gay, I would pray even harder. I was at church every time the doors opened. I thought if I read the Bible every day and did everything that I thought I was supposed to and obey God and pray and that he was going to change me. And this was my life. This was my life from my teens all the way up to about 25, 26. I started to hate myself. I started to feel ashamed, especially when I felt like I was having a gay feeling or gay thought or anything like that. And shame can just be the worst feeling in the world. And it does so much mental damage. I didn't realize how much mental damage that did to me until a little bit later in life, but that led me into having no self-confidence, no self-esteem, and that just in school I didn't want to be called on. I just didn't want no attention because I was afraid that I was going to get made fun of or people were going to find out my secret for some reason. That was just kind of was my mentality at that time. And there were so many factors that made me definitely afraid of anyone, especially my family, to find out that I had possibly was gay. For one, I saw how my family treated my cousin when she came out as a lesbian. My family disowned her, and that had a profound impact on me. And I didn't want to be disowned by my family. I also was afraid that I was going to burn in hell because being raised in church, especially in a rural church out in a rural county in Kentucky where it's conservative, it's a Bible belt, it's, Bible thumping, all that, I was afraid and I was conditioned to think that I was going to go and burn in hell for if I was gay. And that did just so much mental damage to me. Again, I didn't realize how bad that damage was until a little bit later in life because it came out in different ways because I suppressed this secret. I suppressed those feelings. I did everything I could to be straight and made sure people, especially my family, didn't find out. And that just really caused a lot of mental damage. After I graduated high school in 98, I felt a sense of relief in a way. And that relief was that I no longer was going to be bullied in school. I was no longer going to be called Tinkerbell or faggot or anything like that. I just felt a sense of like, okay, I don't have to worry about going to school anymore because I won't be made fun of anymore. And in 98, my mom and stepdad had moved to Colorado after I graduated high school. And I had went out there a couple of times to visit, kind of fell in love with the area out there. Um, and I was young, I have no tie downs. So in February of 2002, I decided to move out to Carbondale, Colorado, where my mom and stepdad lived. And like I said, as a single guy with no tie downs, I wanted to experience something new. I never lived anywhere other than where I grew up or my hometown, and I just wanted that experience. And after moving out there, after a few months, my mom had a friend that had a son, and we became friends. And then he invited me to go to this church. I met a couple other people. One guy in particular who was the youth pastor there. We became really good friends. I became close with him and his family, and just had a really nice friendship. And then I had met this couple in that church who had a basement type apartment, but we shared the kitchen and shared like the common areas of the house. And so I moved in with them because look, I'm 22, going on 23. Who 22 or 23-year-old wants to live, at home with their parents, especially when you're holding on to a secret? And in 2002, the internet was still a new thing. I mean, it had only been around for a couple of years. It was still a new thing. It hadn't really taken off yet. And I mean, it kind of was starting to, there still wasn't no social media or anything like that. So the internet was just kind of new. And with me struggling with my identity and with being, gay, I didn't know really what gay was other than being attracted to the same sex. Because look, being raised in the 80s and 90s as a kid and teen in the 90s, again, I didn't have resources. I didn't have there was no social media. There was no LGBTQ centers. I didn't see anything about gay on TV. I had nothing. I lived in a rural county out in Kentucky, a very conservative county. We didn't have cable. We didn't have, we just had regular TV. I didn't have any resources. So the only thing I knew about gay was, oh, you're attracted to the same sex and it's a sin. That's the only two things I knew. So living in this little kind of basement apartment, I would use their computer from time to time. Um, and one night I looked up what was gay and I looked up on the internet things about gay and stuff like that. And of course, when you put in something like that, you're going to get all types of things. You're going to get, pornography things. You're going to get just all types. And so I searched around for a little bit, felt guilty, prayed for God to forgive me for doing that, turned off the computer, and went, I think, to bed. Unbeknownst to me, because I was kind of naive about computers at that time or even the web, I didn't know anything about cookies or history, history. And so, unbeknownst to me, the couple that owned the house and everything, they could see what I searched, and they could see what everything that I had searched or looked up. And so, again, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that they knew or that they knew what I searched, because I just deleted it thinking that I was safe, and I wasn't. Well, they went to the pastor of the church we went to and told him about what I searched and that they thought maybe I was gay. And so at this time, I'm heavily kind of into this church. I'm volunteering all the time. I'm working with my friend who's the youth pastor, and it was during the week, and I had stopped by to help volunteer to do something, and the pastor of that church pulled me into his office and began to confront me about what I had searched on their computer. And when I tell you that the blood drained from my body, I felt like my soul had left my body. I feel like that is just an understatement of how I felt. I couldn't believe it that somebody knew my secret. And all I could do as I'm sitting there in that chair, all I could do is look at the ground. I slumped in the chair and I felt ashamed. And I was so ashamed. And I just kept looking at the chair. I don't remember talking that much. I don't really remember everything that the pastor was saying. I felt like I left my body. And all I wanted to do was run out of there, run away, run and hide because I was so ashamed. I couldn't believe it. Somebody knew my secret. And on top of that, on top of him knowing, he went and told my friend, the youth pastor, and made him come into the office and made me tell him what I was searching on the computer. And I just wanted to die. I don't I never looked at either one of them. I don't even think I lifted my head. I just kept looking at the ground and I was so ashamed. All I wanted to do was run away. I think I even tried to run out of the office, but they stopped me to talk to me and they wouldn't let me leave and they were trying to, be nice about it. They were trying to be like, we'll help you through this, we'll pray for you, we'll all this. And the pastor wanted me to go see this Christian therapist who had an office in the church. And after some convincing, I said I would. But at the time, I just wanted to run out of that church. And I think once I had the opportunity, I just left. And I didn't even know if I would even go back. I didn't want to go back. I was scared. I was scared that someone knew my secret, and I was scared that somehow they were going to tell my parents. And I, I just, I didn't know what to do. I had thoughts of suicide. I had thoughts of never going back to that church. I had thoughts of never. I don't even think I answered my cell because that's right around the time when cell phones started to come out. I had this little flip phone, and I didn't answer calls from my friend, and I just was. I didn't know what to do. I was just. I had about 1,000 different feelings going on inside my head at that time. And so I ultimately went back to the church. My friend who was the youth pastor convinced me to come back, and I went back and I started seeing this Christian therapist who had an office there in the church, and I never saw a therapist before. I'd never talked to anybody about my secret before. I'd never, or anything like that. And it is or was as you imagine it. In a way, it was a smaller scale of conversion therapy, in a way, um, giving me a list of things to work on and do and stay away from, and things to how to train my mind in being straight and all this. And I have to say, it consciously, it was conditioning my mind to think that was being healed and that I could heal from this. I felt, I hadn't had a gay thought in a while, and so I thought I was on the right track. And I ultimately started going to this Bible study, and I met this girl, and we started talking and hanging out. And I realized, it had been, a couple weeks to a month that I hadn't had a gay thought. So I, thought it was working. And looking back on it now, I see that I was being brainwashed. They were conditioned, the church and that Christian therapist was conditioning my mind and making me think that I was being healed. It was brainwashed. I mean, the books that I was giving and everything. And at one point, the pastor came to me and had signed me up for information about this program that I could go to I think it was in California, I think. I don't quite remember where it was at. Anyway, I thought it was maybe in California, maybe. But it's for people that struggle with homosexuality and they cure you. And I didn't, at that time, I didn't know anything about conversion therapy. I didn't know anything about, any of that or how dangerous those conversion therapy is. And something in me told me no. I'm like, no, I don't feel like I need to do it. The therapy here is working and all that. And I didn't, I took the information, I looked over it, but I didn't, my gut told me I didn't need to do it. And I'm so thankful that I didn't do it. I'm so thankful that I didn't, um, because, now we know how bad conversion therapy is. We know how bad those places are for LGBT people. And honestly, I feel like if I had done that program, I don't believe I would be alive today because of the damage, the mental damage those places do to LGBTQ youth. So I'm so glad I didn't do that. But, I started dating this girl. I thought I was going good. And the whole time, looking back on it now, realizing that I was suppressing a lot. And I was being conditioned to, with all this material, with this way of thinking. I mean, it was brainwashing. It literally was brainwashing. And so I met this girl and we went on a few dates. We started talking, we started dating. And now I'm thinking, okay, great. I'm straight. I can do this. I can be with her. This is great. I've overcome this. I felt like God had finally answered my prayers. So we started dating, ultimately getting engaged, and we did get married. And so I'm like, okay, great. I've done it. I'm straight now. Look at me. Look, everybody. If there was any questions about me being gay, I feel like I put those to bed by marrying her. Um, and in the beginning, we had a pretty good marriage and we had a pretty good time and everything. But then about a year into the marriage, I started, these feelings started coming back up and these thoughts. And, as hard as I tried to fight them mentally, it just, it was getting worse. And I wasn't happy and I was getting depressed and I wouldn't talk. And, our relationship started to suffer. So then we ultimately moved to Nashville, Tennessee. We both wanted a new start, I guess, but it didn't change. The environment changed, but what I was struggling with didn't change. And, you know, we didn't even make it to our 2-year anniversary and we decided to get divorced. And here's the thing. When we decided to separate and get divorced, you would think that I would be devastated, that I would be heartbroken. Honestly, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And I know that sounds bad, and I know a lot of people may or may not understand that. But here's the thing. I never maliciously intended to hurt my ex-wife. I never set out to hurt her. I tried the best I could to love her the way a husband should love his wife. I never cheated. I never looked outside the marriage. Even when I was struggling and I was having these thoughts and feelings, I never went outside of marriage. I I did my best to my ability to be devoted to her, but I was living a lie. It was starting to take a mental toll. I was getting depressed. Anxiety was kicking in. I wasn't happy. She wasn't happy. So when we decided to separate and divorce, I just, I hate to say it this way, but it was like a relief. I felt like I didn't have to, um, I guess, hide maybe in a way, and if that makes any sense. But when we decided to separate and divorce, I moved back home to Kentucky. She moved back to Colorado. And here I am living back home in Kentucky in the middle of a divorce. Now I'm like, okay, who the hell am I and what do I do now? Do I want to be straight? Do I want to figure out who I am? Do I want to try to figure out this gay thing? Do I want to figure out I just so many emotions were running through me, so many thoughts. I struggled and I had this mental struggle because I still didn't want my family to know. I still didn't want them to find out. And I I honestly was in a mental struggle with myself trying to figure out who am I? So as I'm trying to figure all this out, I went back to work for a company in the hotel industry that I worked for before, and it happened to be the same hotel that my aunt by marriage worked at. She worked in housekeeping, I worked front desk, and we were working there, and starting to kind of put the pieces back together somewhat, and I'm trying to just get through this divorce and trying to figure out who I am, who I want to be. And, so the divorces comes final, and I'm like, okay, I just felt like I needed someone to talk to. I needed to get some feedback. I don't know. I wanted to talk to somebody. And back then, again, no social media, no Facebook, MySpace, nothing like that. The thing back then on the internet was a place called gay.com, which was a chat room. So I got on there and met this guy through chat, and he lived locally. We would go get coffee, and I would talk and tell him, what I'd been through, that I was, just got divorced, all this stuff. He was a really good friend. He became a good friend, and he let me talk. He shared his experience. He let me talk about mine. Excuse me, sorry about that. And we had a nice little friendship. Nothing sexual, nothing like that. And I made that clear up front. I needed someone to talk to. Well, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that he knew my aunt that worked at the same hotel I did. And I knew he worked there previously. He worked in the restaurant, but he no longer worked there. But I didn't know when he exactly worked there and if it was, you know, at the same time my aunt did. So he was talking to me or talking to her about me one day. Didn't tell me by name, but she kind of put two and two together and figured out that it was me. So I go to work one day and I go to see her before I start my shift, and she confronts me about it. Here I am. I kind of teleported myself back to that place in the pastor's office. I felt ashamed. I felt scared. I felt all those same feelings and emotions. And I told her I didn't know if I was gay. I didn't know. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out who I am and what I am and all this. And she kind of basically threatened to tell my sisters and brothers if I didn't tell them first. Um, the person that I kind of considered a second mother, the person that I kind of considered that I had a really good relationship and I was close to, now was kind of showing me her true colors and was showing me her vindictive side. And I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready to tell anybody because I'm trying to figure out who I am still. And it's not a overnight process when you're dealing with something like that. And so I basically had to come out to my sisters and brother before she outed me. Well, she went on ahead and outed me to the family. She told my uncle, her husband, told other people in the family. I ended up getting a email supposedly from my uncle, even though it was her email account, saying that I am no longer a member of this family. Been I have disgraced the Croman name. I am not to um, I'm trying to remember everything it says. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. Anyway, I was basically disowned. I'm no longer a member of the family, and they didn't want nothing more to do with me. Well, you can only imagine how I felt. My biggest fear, my secret that I tried to hide for so long, was out. And it was out in a way that I had no control over. I didn't get that coming out experience. I didn't get that. It wasn't on my terms. It was on someone else's terms. And she became a very vindictive person. She even outed me to my parents. And that all that happened, when all that happened, that really set into motion my downward spiral of mental health issues. And so, not only was my secret found out once, it was found out twice. And in both instances, I didn't have control over how it came out, how it was told, how I didn't get that. I was robbed of that. And I was made to feel ashamed, and I was made to feel like I had done something wrong. And it really just started a bad time in my life. It started a cycle of mental health events and issues that had taken me, it would have taken, it took me years to get a grasp on it and handle it. And so with that, I understand this is a very heavy episode for me, at least, because I have had to relive all these moments. Thankfully, I'm in a place mentally where I'm stronger, I can handle it, I can look back on it and be okay. It doesn't affect me anymore, but it's very heavy still. And so with that, I hope that if you're going through something similar to this, what I shared, or you have been through something similar to this, here's my hope, or here's what I would like to say. Find someone that you trust, that you can confide in and talk to, but be comfortable with that person. Find someone, hopefully, that will support you and listen to you and help you and encourage you and not be vindictive. Find someone to have a friendship with that is a no strings attached friendship, that their heart is about loving, is about caring, and is about supporting you in whatever you need. And I wish I had had that. The one thing I wish I had through this whole process was someone that I could trust and confide in and that could help me, because Lord knows I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I know I went through all of this alone. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have any resources. I didn't know where to turn to or where to look to. And sometimes I turned to the wrong people or the wrong places because of just not knowing, not being educated, not having resources, not having anybody that I could trust. And I wish I'd had that. And so my hope is that you, if you're hearing this and you're going through something similar or you're going through a struggle, to please reach out, to please find a way to have find someone that you can talk to. Again, 988 is a great resource. It's a great, line if you are in a place where you don't have a LGBT center close by, or you don't know who to call or who to turn to or what to do. 988. Yes, it's a suicide hotline, but at least it's somebody there that will listen and talk to. And there's the Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender National Hotline, 888-843-4564. Those are two resources that you can use if you need someone to talk to. I appreciate if you stay till the end and listen to this whole podcast. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support and any support you give me. I am just very passionate about mental health. I'm very passionate about using what I went through to hopefully help others see that they're not alone, that there are people out there that hear you, that see you, that love you, that want a better life for you. If you're struggling with mental illness, if you feel alone, know that you are not the only one. Know that there are people out there that love you and that care about you and that want the best for you. Look, we are all here on this earth together. We're all meant to help each other, love one another, be there for each other. Mental illness is a hard thing to do by yourself. Trust me, I know. I spent too many years dealing with it on my own. It is and what's so difficult about mental illness is that it affects everyone in so many different ways. But yet we can all come together, we can be here for each other, we can use these resources that we have and help each other. Because your life is worth living. Your life is you are worth being here. You are worth love. You are worth friendship. You are worth everything that your heart desires. You're worth that. And I hope as I continue these podcasts, as I continue to share my story and share things, that it encourages you, that you realize that there are just people out there that have been through or are going through the same things you are. Please reach out if you need help. Please. Again, thank you so much. If you stay till the end here, thank you so much for listening. I hope you got some positive stuff out of this podcast. I hope that I have encouraged you to not give up. That's what I want to do. I'm very passionate about this. I am new to all this podcasting. I'm learning as I go. I'm doing everything on my own here, so I am new. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you join me next Sunday for a whole new podcast. Please reach out if you need anything. If you have questions, concerns, please reach out. Follow me on Facebook at Joey Lloyd Photography, Instagram at Joey Lloyd Photography. My email is joeylloydphotography@gmail.com. Email me with questions, concerns, your stories, anything that you want to reach out to me about. I am here. And again, thank you so much, guys. Again, you are loved. You are heard. You are seen. You are worth everything. At least to me, you are. So thank you. I hope you have a great rest of the Sunday, and I will see you next Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.